Thank you for stopping by Barbecue Stories channel. Be sure to like and subscribe. I made a dreadful mistake and lost the only man I've ever truly loved due to my own selfish beliefs. The pain of knowing I caused him heartache is unbearable, but what's even more devastating is realizing that he's gone forever. I had hoped that together we could fix the mistakes I made. He was a loving partner and a dear friend, but I threw it all away for meaningless flings with random men. I was 20 when I first met my future husband, Donnie, at the library. He handed me a book from the top shelf, and from there, we struck up a conversation and exchanged numbers. Donnie wasn't the most attractive man, but he had an irresistible charm. Our friendship quickly grew into a romantic relationship. For me, Donnie was my first in everything: my first date, my first kiss, my first love, and my first sexual experience. However, for him, I wasn't his first, as he was far more experienced than I was, which often made me feel insecure. When Donnie proposed, I felt both happiness and fear. I was worried I might have chosen the wrong life partner since I had no one else to compare him to. That's when I first brought up the idea of an open relationship, hoping to gain more experience before our wedding to reassure myself he was the one. Donnie was furious. He made it clear he didn't want to share me and saw me as his future wife. His words moved me deeply, and for a while, I let go of the idea of an open relationship and agreed to marry him. Our wedding was small and filled with joy, surrounded by family and friends. Our first year of marriage was blissful, but eventually, those nagging doubts resurfaced. I worried that marriage had deprived me of the exciting sexual adventures my friends often talked about. They would freely share stories of their flings, and I had nothing to contribute. So, I brought up the idea of an open relationship with Donnie again, this time more tentatively. His reaction was the same: he made it clear I could lose him if I pushed further. I then asked if we could spice up our sex life, but his blunt, uncompromising response angered me. I felt he was being unfair, as he had dated multiple women before me. Why couldn't I do the same? Months passed, and I brought it up again, but I was met with the same stern response. Looking back, I realize how selfish I was, marrying Donnie while secretly wanting to be with other men. My thoughts drifted, hoping naively to keep his love. Now, I hate myself for betraying the one person who cherished me most. It wasn't long before I gave in to temptation. There's always a catalyst that drives us toward our worst impulses, and mine was Bob. He was a massive man, built like a bodybuilder, with tight clothes showing off his bulging muscles. He drew women's attention with ease, a swaggering alpha male full of confidence. Bob was transferred to my department as my direct boss, which meant daily briefings alone together. He was over 30, older than both me and my husband, and had a flirty demeanor. It was hard to remain professional around him without feeling a thrill. One evening, Bob invited me for drinks after work. I couldn't believe it. Was he really interested, or just being polite? My mind raced, but I couldn't say no. We went to a nearby bar, and I drank too much. Our conversation moved from formal to intimate, and I ended up confessing my desire for more than just being one man's wife. I told him about my thoughts on an open marriage, my wish for sexual freedom without guilt, and my attraction to him. He asked if I had discussed this with my husband, and I told him yes, but that Donnie didn't agree and would leave if I went through with it. Bob suggested I shouldn't ask for permission but instead present the idea to my husband as a done deal. He said I could make my marriage open without needing Donnie's consent. Looking back, I see now that Bob was just manipulating me, but at the time, I grasped at any excuse to justify my desires. That night, Bob took me to a hotel, and I felt like a queen. Though Donnie had made me feel that way every day, the excitement of being with another man made me feel like a teenager again. When I got home, Donnie was asleep on the couch, having waited up for me. I snuck into the bathroom to wash away the smell of alcohol and unfamiliar cologne. When I came out, I told him I had something to discuss. He smiled and said he had happy news to share but let me go first. As I spoke, his smile vanished, but I didn't care. I had already convinced myself I was doing the right thing. I told him I wanted to see other men and hoped he would support me. I told him that if he didn't, I couldn't be happy with him. I still can't believe the garbage I spewed at the man who had once cherished me. Donnie just stared at me for what felt like an eternity before bowing his head in defeat. After a long silence, he muttered, "If that's what you want, then fine by me," and walked out, never sharing his happy news. The next day, I leapt eagerly into Bob's arms, and we had sex on his desk, the first of many encounters. I began going out on Fridays with colleagues, waking up on Saturdays in the arms of strangers I never saw again. I thought Donnie had accepted our open marriage, so I continued seeing other men almost daily. But after 2 months, reality hit me. One Friday, as I got ready for work, Bob came to pick me up, and I assumed Donnie had already left for the day. I thought we could sneak in a quick session before work, but Donnie was still home. He answered the door to Bob standing there with flowers. I couldn't hear their conversation over the shower, but when I came out, they were chatting as if everything was normal. Donnie never showed any emotions, no anger, no disappointment, nothing. I foolishly believed he was okay with everything. That Friday, Bob and I booked a hotel with a stunning view of the city, and we spent the night together. When I came home on Saturday, something felt off. The house was eerily quiet. Donnie never worked weekends, and he always had music playing. I checked the gym, but he wasn't there. In the kitchen, I saw my favorite mug, which made me smile, thinking things were still okay. But inside the mug was an envelope. I don't remember the exact words, but I've kept the letter as a painful reminder of what I lost. The letter said Donnie was leaving for a month-long business trip to Canada. When he returned, he planned to file for divorce. He regretted marrying me and wasting so much time together. Next to the letter was a plane ticket and a passport in my name, with a message on the back. "Remember the news I mentioned 2 months ago? Here it is. My company offered to cover accommodations for both of us in Canada. They even offered you a job." At the bottom of the mug was his wedding band. My world shattered. I spent the rest of the day staring at that mug, unable to eat or drink, just frozen in despair. The next day, Donnie's best friend arrived with movers to collect all his things. I cried uncontrollably, but his friend shot me a disgusted look, calling me a name that still cuts me to this day. Since Donnie left, my home has felt cold and empty. I tried to distract myself by jumping from one affair to another, but even Bob abandoned me. He put in for a transfer shortly after everything fell apart, telling me he was moving on now that the fun was over. My work life spiraled, and I eventually got fired. My parents and friends turned their backs on me, thanks to Donnie's buddy telling them about my behavior. In a matter of months, I lost everyone I loved. When Donnie returned, he finalized our divorce. I begged him to listen, even suggested couples therapy, but he refused. By the time it was over, I had nothing, no home, no husband, and no one who cared about me. I still hate myself for destroying it all. Dear listeners, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to the channel for more content.